Well, good morning, Center for Spiritual Living, Greater Las Vegas. What a joy it is to be back with you. I so enjoyed spending time with you in person last week. For those of you that were with us at Abston Elementary School, we had such a grand and glorious time there. I want to give some special thanks to the people that helped us make that possible. First off to Joe and Justin, our wonderful media and music directors who set everything up and get everything running. So without them, we couldn't do this, and we couldn't broadcast it to you either. I want to give thanks to all of the volunteers who were there in service for throughout the morning. You make this possible with your dedicated sacred service is a blessing to our entire community. And I want to thank the Leadership Council for the wonderful reception that they provided and for all of the work that they have done throughout the last couple of years to hold our community together and to create these wonderful experiences that we always have available to us. So, today is our last Sunday of the year. We're rounding out our theme. Our theme for the year has been Timeless Wisdom, Evolutionary Vision. Timeless Wisdom and Evolutionary Vision. We've explored it in lots of different ways. This month, our focus has been on the journey of becoming. What it is we're becoming and how we proceed with that. So today's theme kind of brings it all to an end for the year and yet gives us great anticipation of what's coming next. The title for today is A New Light Dawns. A New Light Dawns. You know, at the end of the year, it's often been the focus throughout the millennia for different cultures to focus on the light. Because, as you know, with the winter solstice, when it occurs, it is the end of the darkest days of the year, and it begins back that path of gradually increasing the amount of light throughout the day. And so this time of the winter solstice is often focused around light. There has been many faith traditions that have created some kind of light ceremony at this time of the year. We have the different faith traditions. If we go back to the earliest faiths, the earliest traditions that we had, the cultures of the pagan and the Celtic and the Wiccan and the earth-based traditions, all the light was so significant to them because in the lack of knowledge that they had, there was often a fear of the darkness. And so as they saw that light return and gradually get more light each day, there was a hope there. There was an optimism there. There was something that was being birthed in there, and things were coming back to a sense of security and a sense of peace and a sense of well-being because it was no longer quite so dark. And of course, with the light comes warmth and all of the things that the warmth brings, including the new plant growth and movement of animals and all of the things that help sustain lives in those early peoples. So this idea of this light has been celebrated throughout all the cultures. Many different cultures honor the light by lighting candles for different directions, and depending on the tradition that it is, the directions are often called different things, or they're labeled different things, or they have different significance. But often in these early faith-based or early earth-based traditions, we had this time of lighting candles, lighting fires. In the Celtic and religions, we have the celebrations of Yule, which was celebrated with a Yule log that was lit and burned, a ceremonial log to bring warmth and fire as the end of the year was coming to a close. And then with the new year, we had the celebration of Imbolc, which was a celebration to the goddess Bridget, and it was often signified by lighting lots of bonfires and torches and things like that to bring this idea of more warmth coming back into the world. And then from those faith traditions came some of the newer ones. We have the Hindu tradition, which originated in Hindu tradition of the celebration of Diwali, which is a festival of lights. It's actually celebrated by the Sikhs, the Jains, and some different Buddhist sects, where they all began to honor this celebration of light through lighting different oil lamps that they have. We have the Jewish tradition of Hanukkah with lighting the menorah, which was a celebration of light that kept the people feeling safe in a situation where there should not have been enough oil to maintain the lights for as many days as there were. They were able to do that, and they considered it a miracle that this happened. And so we have the celebration of light. In the early Christian traditions, there was the celebration of Advent, which is the usually it's 22 to 28 day period in December before the coming of Christ, and then also with the rebirth of Christ, and it was celebrated depending on the calendar. It's either 22 to 28 days, and again, that's lighting candles of different colors representing different things. We have purple candles, pink candles, white candles that all have different traditions. And in one of our newest faith traditions, which originated in North America, we have the tradition of kwanzaa, which is also, again, symbolized by the lighting of candles. You have 7 candles, and each candle represents something different. And they're lit. You have 3 green candles, 3 red candles, and 1 black candle, and each one represents a different quality, a different way of being for people that celebrate Kwanzaa. So today is actually the first day of Kwanzaa. December 26th is the first day of Kwanzaa. And the celebration that happens on the first day of Kwanzaa is called umoja. And umoja means unity. And unity is that idea that we are all one, we are all connected, interconnected, and that we are all dependent upon each other. And this coincides so beautifully with our spiritual principles. We have our statements in the what we believe statements. We have one of them that actually talks directly to the idea of unity. It's we believe in the unity of all life, and that the highest God and the innermost God is one God. We believe in the unity of all life, and that presence of the divine that is within us is the same as the presence of divine that is outside of us. And that it is the same as the presence of the divine that we see in each other, which again signifies that sense of unity, of interconnectedness, that what is in me is in others. I think the principles of Kwanzaa are actually beautiful guiding principles that we can all live by. So these ideas of unity, interconnectedness, and so forth have really been around forever, and they have really permeated almost all of our culture. And yet it's an idea that is often only given lip service to. It is not an idea that we often truly embody. This idea that what is in me is the same as what's in you, because oftentimes we get into these relationships with people, and instead of seeing our commonness, we see our differences. And we react to the differences in other people. And those differences then lead to things like fear and anger and mistrust and doubt. And we begin to allow those ideas to be more of a dominating force in our lives than the ideas of unity and oneness and sameness and interconnectedness. And so those ideas that are limiting beliefs, those ideas of fear and lack and limitation and doubt and anger and mistrust, they often become the overriding principle. And I think that has led to all of the discord that we've experienced in our world. In one way or another, when we look outside of ourselves and we see something that is different than us, that we don't understand, or that we can't agree with, or that we find totally intolerable, then we have a tendency to react to it. And then we get things like wars and violence and anger and all of the different things that we unfortunately experience all too common. But I think if we could go back to that idea that we are we're not all the same, but we're all made of the same stuff. We are all interconnected in such a tangible and profound way that we cannot look outside of ourselves and see something that is not the truth of who we are. You know, I know early on in my studies, I got to this idea of if I see something outside of myself, it is a reflection of something in me, something that is unhealed in me. And I have to say, I had quite a reaction to that, because it's like, wait a second, there is no way that that person who's doing that thing right there is any way like me. And what I came to understand is it wasn't that that person was like me, but it was that I was having some kind of internal emotion that was out of balance with my understanding of unity and interconnectedness. And so that's what my reaction was. It wasn't even so much as what they were doing or who they were. It was that I was out of alignment with my understanding of the principles of unity and interconnectedness. And so I had to begin to really look at that in a different way. That doesn't mean that everything that I see outside of myself I have to agree with. That doesn't mean that everything I see outside of myself I am not going to speak up against, because there are certain things in our world that we absolutely are morally responsible to take a stand against. But there are things within us that are operating that we are not aware of. And so when I begin to look at what it is inside of me that is having a reaction to what it is out there. When I first started here at Science of Mind, a couple years before that, I had given up watching TV because there was just too much. The news was awful. The commercials were just full of fear. They were pretty much all driven by fear in some way or another to try to get you to buy their product. You got to take this pill, or you got to have that car, or you need to have this, or all of these things. And you listen to the commercials. It was like, what is the underlying message here? If you don't have this, something's going to be wrong. And so I just stopped watching TV altogether. And I did that for for the most part, I still am doing it. I'm very selective about what I watch now, because I didn't want all of that in there. But when I was in ministerial school, we were taking a class called Contemporary Applications of Science of Mind. And in this class, we were given topics that we had to research. And these were topics that were volatile, topics that produce a lot of emotions within each other. And we had to look at those topics and find the spiritual principle back of it, and figure out how we could speak to those principles, those situations, and still speak in principle. Still use our Science of Mind principles to talk about that and get to an understanding of it, and find a way to help people heal through those experiences. And so one of the things that I began doing was reading the news each day, and began to sit with that and to let in bits and pieces of it so that I could actually do this high spiritual work in those situations, knowing the truth for those situations. Joel Goldsmith calls this our world work. He says we are to be in the world. In other words, we need to know what's going on in the world around us, but we're not to be of the world. In other words, we can't let it permeate us and change how we behave. We have to know the truth of the situation and experience it from that high principled place, as opposed to the place of fear or lack or anger or any of those more negative emotions. And so doing this world work is so critically important to us. So as I was preparing for this talk, I came across an article that was talking about how we are actually our own ancestors, how that we are the ancestors for future generations. We are actually our own ancestors. We are actually our own children, even if we don't give birth to children, because everything about it, if we believe in this interconnectedness of life, if we believe that there's a unity within all life, and that the innermost God and the highest God is the same God, then we must understand another one of our what we believe statements. This one actually happens to be my favorite one, which really explains this idea very well. I like this one because I like the sentiment behind it, but I also like the language of it. I think it's kind of lyrical. And so it was actually the first one I memorized, which is, we believe in the eternality, the immortality, and the continuity of the individual soul forever and ever expanding. We believe in the eternality, the immortality, and the continuity of the individual soul forever and ever expanding. So if we believe this, if we know that our individual soul never ends, that it is eternal, that it is constantly evolving, that it is on an evolutionary trajectory, more and more and more, and constantly rising higher and expanding out, then the soul that is within this body here today has been in the soul throughout the time. It has been a soul into the future. It is the soul that is the ancestor of myself right now. The same soul has been in existence in the past. And so it is my ancestor. It is continuing on, it is constantly ever evolving, and so it will become the ancestor of future generations. And so if I am my own ancestor, and I am the ancestor of future generations, then what I do in every single moment makes a big impact. Am I behaving in a way that is going to be beneficial to the people in the future? Am I behaving in a way that honors the ancestors of the past? Am I behaving in a way that is going to inspire others? How am I behaving as a responsible ancestor to future generations? We meet the ancestors of future generations every single moment. Because not only is this true for each one of us, but it's true for everyone. That every soul is eternal and immortal and continually expanding and moving on. And so when we meet somebody in the grocery store, we are meeting someone's ancestor. And how we behave towards them could influence how the people of the future, their prodigy, interpret life. And so are we behaving in a way that validates this idea of unity? Are we behaving in a way that is going to be detrimental to those in the future? We have a responsibility to be the best that we can be in each moment, right here and right now. We have a responsibility to the future. We are standing on great shoulders, our own ancestors from the past. We are standing on ourselves as an ancestor. And so are we continually evolving? Or are we staying stuck in the place that we're at? I know earlier this month I talked about Ernest saying that there's no power in precedent. That nothing that has happened before determines what is happening right now, unless we choose to make it so. If we choose to allow some event in the past to rule our life today, then we're missing out on the opportunity and the beauty of this particular moment. So how are we behaving to our future ancestors? You know, when we think about that, I am the ancestor that future generations will speak of. How do I want to be remembered? How do I want to influence those future generations? I am the ancestor that future generations will speak of. Right now is this opportunity to bring our 2021 year to a close. And taking a time to reflect on what has happened over the past 12 months. To look at where we were 12 months ago and to see how we've progressed. And if we haven't progressed as far as we would have liked, then we have an opportunity, starting again, each and every moment, to change that, to allow the next year to be different than the year in the past. I think this global pandemic that we've been through has allowed some people to really become closed in on themselves. I think, part of that's out of necessity, and part of it's out of fear, and part of it's out of, I don't know what else to do. And so there's this idea of just closing in on ourselves, becoming more insular. I happen to have found this past year, for lots of different reasons, that my life has been blown up totally out of the little box that it might have been in beforehand. And I didn't think it was little back then. But my life is, I feel like I'm living large and loud now, that there is this expansion that's going on within me. And I'm very excited about it. And I can see an optimism and a hope there. As we begin to close out this year, we have an opportunity. We can look at it and use it for a launching point into the next year, or we can ignore it and pretend it didn't happen. There's a Rumi poem that speaks to this so well, and I love the poetry of Rumi, the 12th century mystic. He says, "The breezes at dawn have secrets to tell you. Don't go back to sleep. You must ask for what you really want. Don't go back to sleep. People are going back and forth across the door sill where the two worlds touch. The door is round and open. Don't go back to sleep. Are you willing to cross that threshold? Are you willing to let that new light dawn within you? Or would you rather just go back to sleep? Each moment is a choice for you. Each moment is an opportunity to allow yourself to live a more expansive life, to live a life that makes you proud to be the ancestor of future generations. A life that honors the ancestors that you've been. Are you willing to do that? Are you willing to allow yourself to be this expansive new idea, to let this new dawn of light come through you? Or do you want to just go back to sleep? One of my favorite quotes here is by Edwin Gaines here. She says, "Let your light shine so brightly that others before you see." I'm sorry, I got that wrong. "Let your light shine so brightly that others see God in you. And seeing God in you, they will know that God is in themselves as well. Let your light shine so brightly that others will see God in you. And that when they see God in you, they will see it in themselves as well." It is our world work. Our world work at every moment is to know spiritual truth, to interpret the situations around us through that lens of spiritual truth, and to shine as brightly as we can as an example that our future generations will be proud of. It's big work, folks. It's big work that we have to do, and it's not for the faint of heart. And I'm inviting you to join me on this journey next year as we explore living everyday wonder. Living everyday wonder. Finding the extraordinary in every single moment in our lives. Finding the extraordinary in the ordinary. That is a great spiritual practice. And it is a way that will uplift our lives, uplift our planet. It is a way in which we create a world that works for everyone. And that ultimately is our goal here at Centers for Spiritual Living. Have a beautiful and blessed morning. So let's take these ideas into prayer, into our spiritual mind treatment. Our spiritual mind treatment is a form of affirmative prayer where we honor the presence of the divine. And in that sense of unity, we align ourselves with it. We speak words of truth, affirmations that are based on our principles. We give thanks and we let it go. Knowing that it's complete, we let it be. So I invite you to turn within. And with me, just take in a nice deep breath. Allowing yourself to become centered in this moment. Dropping into our heart space where that presence of peace is so beautifully and tangibly felt. And I know from this place of peace that there is only one. There's only one power, one presence, one divine creative source of all. One living, loving consciousness that is moving through all life, that is manifesting itself in all creation at all times. And this one shows up in many forms, and throughout the ages it has been given many names. But I simply know it as God. And I know that God truly is all there is. And in this deep sense of knowing, I know that because God is all there is, that I must be a part of it. That indwelling presence, that innermost God that is within me, is that highest God, that perfect God, that perfect divine emanation of creation. I know it as love and light, as wisdom and clarity, as peace and joy. I know it as the fullness and the allness of every piece of creation that has ever existed and that is ever yet to be. For nothing exists outside of this one divine presence, this one loving creator. And so I speak my word in full and complete knowledge of the power and the presence of the divine manifested as all life. I know that there is a wholeness and a unity that exists within each and every one of us. I know that the same sense of unity and completeness and perfection and grace that is within me is within every single person I meet. Even if I can't see it, I know it is there. And each and every moment, I tap into that collective consciousness. And I watch how grace unfolds through the events of my life. I watch how grace unfolds in the lives of everyone I meet. This divine harmony, this perfection, this wholeness is the truth of all creation. It has been since the beginning, and it will ever be. For nothing exists outside of this one. How grateful I am to know this, how grateful I am to feel this power, feel this presence, to see it active and operating in my life and the lives of everyone I meet. For I know truly this is a universal experience. And so I release this word into the law, into that creative mind of the divine that always says yes, that never limits, that never has any lack within it. The fullness and the allness of the divine is expressing itself right here and right now. And I rest in that knowing, and I let it be. And so it is. Amen.